Hello my people, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Marion. In this tutorial we make this dress. It is easy to style and can be made in two ways. There is the v-neck and the round neck. In this video particularly we will be making this v-neck, but I will be demonstrating how to go about the round neck. Thank you so much for being here. If you haven't, please consider to subscribe. Welcome. These are the materials that I used for this tutorial: tape measure, a pair of scissors, some stitch markers, and I have a darning needle to weave in my ends. I am using a 4.5mm crochet hook, and my yarn is Seagull. This is a local brand here in Kenya. The thing is, for my yarn, it is very thin, so I will be doubling these strands to achieve medium weight. So if you have a DK weight or medium weight yarn, I highly recommend that you use that. Mine is 100% acrylic, but this dress would do so well with any other type of yarn like cotton or something like that. Now, my yarn, one ball is 165 yards, and I used 14 balls. But since I'm doubling my strands, that gives us around 2,300 yards. So if you're not using double strands, you need at least 12,000 yards to complete this entire outfit. So once you have your materials, let us get right into the video. So these are the measurements that we are going to work with. Her waist is 36, bust is 38, as well as the hips, and the length is 58. Now, we are going to halfen these measurements. So half of 36 is 18. Half of her bust, which is 38, is going to be 19. And half of the hips is 19. So as I said before, we are going to be working with the fullest measurement. Fullest measurement is 38, and it just happens that the bust and the hips is 38 as well. So we are going to be working in panels, and the chain that I'm going to start with is going to be 19 inches. So you will just forget about the 18 because we will use a drawstring that will control the fullness at the waist area to fit and to flaunt the waist. So now, as I'm going to chain 19 inches. And remember, we are working in panels, and we will be starting with the back panel, and then we will see how to work the front panel later on. Now, the stitch pattern that we're using requires a multiple of 3. So the chain that I'm going to chain right now is going to be a multiple of 3 plus 2. So to begin, you make a slip knot, and this is how I make my slip knot. And we are going to begin chaining, and as I said, we are chaining a multiple of 3 plus 2. So we're going to yarn over, pull through the slip knots. That's 1, yarn over, pull through, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to chain 70 more, and I will meet you. I've chained a total of 74, and this is what I have at the moment. Remember, we are working with 19 inches, so you give your chain a light stretch, and I want you to be working loosely when you're doing your chain, because if you do it tightly, it is going to be hard to work in it. Now, I'm going to work the first row, and we are working a cluster of 2 double crochets and a chain 1. That's the stitch pattern. So you're going to yarn over and then count 4 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, and this is where we are going to work our first double crochet. So you yarn over and insert your hook in the 4th chain and work a double crochet like that, and then we are going to chain 1, skip 1 stitch, and go into the next with another double crochet like that, and then do a double crochet in the next stitch. Remember, we are working clusters of 2 double crochets, chain 1, 2 double crochets, chain 1. So I'm going to chain 1 and then skip 1 stitch, go into the next with a double crochet, and then go into the next with a double crochet like that, and then chain 1, skip 1 chain, and go into the next with a double crochet, work a double crochet in the next, chain 1, skip 1, and go into the next with a double crochet like that, and then work another double crochet in the next stitch, and then skip 1 after chaining 1, and then continue with the stitch pattern. So I'm going to work this until I get to the end of the row, and then I will meet you there. I have a total of 23 clusters, and I'm going to chain 1, skip 1 stitch here, and work in the last 2 stitches 2 double crochets, 1 in each, and in the end I have a total of 24 clusters. So this is what you should be having at the end of row 1. Now I'm going to chain 2 and then start row 2. We're going to chain 2, 1, 2, and then turn our work like this, and then we are gonna go, since we have chained 1, it's going to act as our first double crochet on top of this last double crochet that we did. Now we're going to yarn over and go on the next stitch and work a double crochet, so that counts like our next double crochet. So we're going to chain 1 and then skip the chain 1 space and go into the next double crochet, work a double crochet, and then on top of that next double crochet, work a double crochet, chain 1, skip the space, and go into the next with a double crochet like that, and work 2 double crochets. So we are going to be working a cluster on top of the cluster and a chain 1 on top of the chain 1. So we will always skip the space and work those 2 double crochets, skip the space after chaining 1, and then go into the on top of the next cluster and work a cluster. And when I say a cluster, it's just 2 double crochets. Okay, so this is what you should be coming up with. And chain 1, skip the space, go on top of the next 2 stitches and work 2 stitches, and then chain 1 and continue with the row. So I'm coming towards the end of the row. I'm going to chain 1 and do the last cluster. So I'm going to insert a double crochet right here, and then chain 1 and then yarn over, and work a double crochet on top of the turning chain that we started with, because it also counts as a stitch and we want 2 double crochets right there. So this is just a 1 row repeat. There's nothing fancy, nothing difficult, just a clean 1 row repeat as you work your rows. So we are going to continue with this pattern until you achieve the length of your dress. Mine is a whopping 58 inches, so I'm going to be chaining 2 and then starting my double crochet right here, and then chain 1 and go on top of the next stitch with a double crochet, and then a double crochet on top of the next stitch, chain 1, and then we'll just be doing those chain 1s on top of chain 1s and 2 double crochets on top of the 2 double crochets until we achieve our desired length for this dress. Working, and I have a couple of rows in, yes, I'm yet to achieve 58 inches, but I'm gonna introduce the next part because from here downwards it's just the same thing. I'm going to introduce how to do the front panel, and I've actually worked the first part of the front panel, and it has this V shape. And now we're going to introduce the next part right here before we join at the bottom here and continue working as we go. Remember when we started with 24 clusters. So I am going to start with 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 that will form the shoulder seam up here. But then we will increase to achieve half of what we started with here. So we will increase 5 times. So there's 1 here, and I worked 4 more on this part to achieve 24 and to also bring out the V. So I'm going to show you how to do that in the next couple of minutes. Now, as we had said, how to begin our rows, we're working in multiples of 3. So we're going to chain 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 21 plus 2. So you grab your yarn, and however lengthy this part is for you, just remember we are working in multiples of 3. So I'm going to chain 23. Now I have my chain in, and as you remember, we were yarning over and going into the 4th chain and starting the first double crochet like that, and then chain 1, skip 1, go into the next. At least this part you're familiar with. We are just working that first row like that. So I'm going to work this off camera. So just like that, we have begun the second part of the shoulder. Now someone will ask, how did we come to the conclusion that we are going to be starting with 7 clusters? Now remember, we have a total of 24, and these 24 are giving us 19 inches, yes? So if I place my first part of the shoulder here, let us just work the mats together. We want to leave the neck width open and I left 7 inches. So we are working with 19. So 7 minus 19, that gives us how many? So 7 minus 19, that gives us 12. And now I wanted this part to be 6 inches. So I wanted it to be 6 inches, and this 7 give me 6 inches. So it's 6 here and then 6 here to give me 12 plus the 7 that's here in the middle. That brings us to a total of 19 inches. So however big or small your work is, just remember we are starting, you start by minusing or subtracting your neck width, and then whatever you're remaining with, you divide it by 2. So 6 plus 7. So we're going to continue. I'm going to chain 2, turn my work, and do that double crochet on top of the next double crochet like that, and then chain 1, go on top of the next stitch. I'm going to do this until I have 3 rows in. So once you have your 3 rows, 1, 2, 3, this is where we will start increasing our work. Remember, we are working this V as we increase towards the bottom here. This bottom should give you a half of what you started with. So we are going to chain 2 as always, and then remember when we were doing our rows, Normally we'd work the next double crochet on top of this double crochet, but I want you to now start working your double crochets on top of this first double crochet. So we will work 2 stitches here because this chain 2 acts as a stitch. Yes, so when we introduce another, that means we are increasing. So we will place our double crochet right there, and then on top of this double crochet gets a double crochet, and then you're going to chain 1. Now as you can see, we have 3 stitches instead of 2, so chain 1 and go on top of the next cluster and work those 2 double crochets, and then chain 1, go on top of the next cluster and work those 2 double crochets. I'm gonna continue to the end. When you get to this part, you will do your last double crochet on top of that chain 2 stitch that we did on the previous row, and then we are going to chain 2 and then also increase at this point also. So I'm going to do that double crochet on top of the first double crochet to give 2 stitches, and then a double crochet in the next. We have 3 stitches, that's an increase, and then we're going to chain 1 and continue working those clusters as we normally would. So a chain 1 on top of the chain 1 and the 2 double crochets on top of the 2 double crochets. When you get towards the end of the row, we're going to chain 1 and then work a double crochet on top of each and every double crochet. So at this point you will have 3 double crochets. Also this chain 2 gets a double crochet like that, so you have 3. Remember, we are not doing an increase towards the end of the row, we are only increasing at the beginning of the row. So at this point we are going to chain 2, turn our work, and also increase introduce another double crochet on top of the very first stitch like that. So we have just created a cluster. I'm going to chain 1 because our clusters contain 2 stitches. Chain 1 and then go on top of the next 2 stitches to work another cluster. So just like that, we have increased, we have a whole new cluster here, and then we're going to chain 1 and continue working our row as we normally would. So I'm coming towards the end of the row. After chaining 1, I'm going to insert a double crochet on top of each stitch from the previous row. So I have 3 over here, and as from this row we are going to introduce another cluster. So after chaining 2, we are going to work a double crochet right there, and then chain 1. We have introduced a whole new cluster, and then we need another cluster on top of these 2 stitches. So after chaining 1, we work those 2 double crochets and then chain 1 and continue working the row as we normally would. So when we get to this part, we are going to do 2 double crochets on top of this cluster, and so we place 1 double crochet there and then another double crochet there. And as you can notice, I have marked my stitches, I have marked my sides. I want to work the increases on this side, so that's where I have marked. I want them to mirror. I want it to mirror this, the one that I've already worked. So let's say this is the right side, so we are working the left side of the front panel. So I have marked this with a stitch marker so that I don't increase on both sides. Remember, the V is only on one side, so we've already done this increase. This part gets only this side gets only 1 increase, but the rest of the increases are going to happen on one side only. That's why I have marked this with a stitch marker so that I don't forget. So once this increase is in, we've already started working with it. That's it. We will only increase on one side. So from here onwards, this part only gets a chain 2, turn, and a double crochet on top of the second double crochet. And then we're going to chain 1 and continue working the row, chain 1 and go on top of the next cluster. So when you get here, we're going to chain 1 and go on top of this cluster and make a cluster as always. And now, since this is the part that we marked, we are going to introduce another cluster. So I start my stitches with an increase and then work a double crochet on top of the next double crochet, chain 1, and continue working the clusters and the rows as we have. So we are going to work to the end of the row and then we will meet up when I get to this part. Remember, we are not increasing on this side at all, so you will just chain 2, turn your work and continue working your rows from this side as you normally would. The only part that we're increasing is this part. So after your first cluster is in, you will chain 1 and continue working the clusters normal. I have my 3 stitches here, so I'm going to work a double crochet on top of each and every one of them. So by the end of the row, I'll have my 3 stitches on the last cluster, and then we are going to introduce a stitch on the next row. So after chaining 2, you're going to turn and introduce another stitch on that very first stitch. So that's an increase, and then we will chain 1 since a cluster consists of 2 stitches, and then work the next cluster on top of these 2 stitches and then chain 1. So this is what you should have, and then chain 1 and continue working your row. So I have a total of 11 rows. I'm going to continue increasing until I attain this length of camera, and then I will meet you as we join them in the middle. So I have 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10, and remember we are working to get to 12 and 12 to make them 24 altogether. So I'm gonna continue increasing just as we have. I have a total of 2 increases. I need a total of 4 increases on this side, plus the 1 increase that we did here to make them 5, plus the 7 that gives us a total of 12. So let me continue working my work off camera and I'll meet you once we get to this point. I've been working off camera and I have an equivalent of what I had done before. So these 2 are forming the V that you see at the front of the dress, and we are going to join the 2 at the bottom here. So I have 12, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12, and on this side I also have 12 of them, so in total there are 24. So when you work the next panel and you get to this point, you are going to chain 1 and then insert your hook on top of that chain 2 on the next panel. Let's call it a mini panel. And then you're going to pull that yarn and pull it and make a slip stitch all through. So make a slip stitch all through to the chain 1 that you have, and then you make a chain 1, and just like that we have joined these 2. Now I'm going to continue working these clusters and rows to match the other panel. So at this point we have achieved the width of the dress. So you can see Let me put this on top. We've achieved the width of the dress like this, and I'm just going to work this row just as I'm working these rows, nothing to increase, nothing to reduce, but I want to show you how we will work this area so that it doesn't look awkward and weird. So to begin, we are going to chain 2. I have chained 2, and then you turn your work and place a double crochet on top of that double crochet, chain 1, and continue working the clusters as we have always done. There is no increase, there is nothing, just the mesh stitch like that. So at this point I am at the middle, and we're going to chain 1 and do a cluster here. So I will go into this and work a double crochet, and then on top of this chain 2, it also gets a double crochet, and then chain 1 and cross over to the next panel, and now this double crochet gets a double crochet, and the next double crochet gets a double crochet like that. So we have joined, and now we are working through it to the next side, and chain 1 and continue working your clusters, and from here onwards it's just going to be the same, where we'll be chaining 2 at the end and continuing with our rows. So that's it for this top part. I'm going to work off camera, where I will continue working my rows of this stitch pattern until I achieve 58 inches, just as I'm also doing with the back panel. So I'll be working simultaneously on the front panel and the back panel until I have 58 inches on both. See you when we are done. The part that we are working is the sleeve, and my sleeve is 23 inches long. As you can see, I have worked it. It sort of starts narrow, and then it starts expanding on this side to bring the flare. So going forward, we want to learn how to increase, and the increase points are here at the middle and at the end of each and every side, in order for it to flare equally on both sides. So to do this, you are going to get your measurements. So this measurement is the armhole measurement, and as you can see, mine is 7 inches, so that is 14. So when you're making the first chain, it's going to be 14 inches, or whichever measurement that you're going to work with, and then we will continue working this stitch and then start working the increases on this part. So to begin on mine, I'm going to chain a total of 54 plus 2. Remember, the stitch pattern requires a multiple of 3 plus 2 chains. So I'm going to chain 54 plus 2, which is 56. So 1, 2. So once you have your chains, you're going to go into the 4th chain, 1, 2, 3, 4, and work a double crochet. Once you have that, you will chain 1, skip 1, and go into the next with a double crochet. Go into the next with a double crochet. You have your cluster, and then chain 1, skip 1, go into the next with a double crochet. I'm going to work these double crochets until I have my row done, and then we're going to work just normal rows as we have been working, just like the ones on the panels on the dress. So we will work that until I have a total of 15 inches 15 inches just before we start increasing. So work 15 inches or whichever inches that you want to work, and then we will meet up and start now increasing to bring the flare part. We will do that together on camera. I've been working off camera and I have a total of 30 rows. These 30 rows give me 15 inches. And now we want to start the part where we have the flare, and I have marked my mid cluster. This is my middle cluster, and we are going to be increasing at the beginning of each and every row and at the mid of each and every row. So as you remember, when we were working that V part where we were increasing, we were starting by chaining 2. You chain 2 as always, and then you're going to insert the hook in this first stitch to add another stitch. So instead of having 2, we are going to start with 3. So I'm going to yarn over and insert my hook right there on top of that first stitch, and then go on the second stitch and make a double crochet. I'm going to chain 1 and continue working this row until I get to the middle cluster, and I will come back to do another increase. So just as you normally would, we are going to be placing 2 double crochets on top of the 2 double crochets, chain 1 on top of the chain 1, skip that space and go into the next cluster and work your row. Now once you get to this part where we have marked, remember we are increasing just with 1 stitch at every station. We are going to chain 1 and make 2 double crochets in this first double crochet here, the part that we have marked already. So we will make 2 double crochets in there and then go on the next stitch and make 1 double crochet like this. So instead of 2 stitches, we now have 3 to mark our increase, and leave this stitch marked because when we come back, we are going to also work an increase right here. I'm going to chain 1 and continue working the row normally with 2 double crochets and a chain 1 until the end. So when you get to the end of the row, this is what you should have. Only 2 stitches because we don't increase at the end of the row, but at the beginning and at the middle. So having said that, we are going to chain 2, turn our work, and I just said we only increase at the beginning of every stitch. This is the beginning, so I'm going to yarn over and place a double crochet on top of this very first stitch to mark the increase, and then go to the next stitch and work a double crochet. So instead of 2, we have 3 stitches, then chain 1 and work the clusters as normally, and we will meet where we marked and do an increase. So when you get to this part, mark the mid stitch. This is the middle stitch. We are going to do our increase right here. So you will yarn over, do a double crochet in that first double crochet, and then go to the next stitch, which is the middle one, and do your first double crochet like that. Chain 1, because remember a cluster is consisting of 2 double crochets. So after 2 double crochets, we're chaining 1 and doing in that same stitch, we are going to do another double crochet. Yes, so this stitch is carrying 2 double crochets with a chain 1 in the middle, and then the last stitch gets a double crochet. Okay, so we have introduced a cluster here where we have 2 double crochets, chain 1, and 2 double crochets. I'm also going to chain 1 and continue working the row. So when we come back, we are going to work an increase on this row. So I will remove my stitch marker and place it here, so that when I come back, I know very well that my increase is going to happen on this row, on this cluster, I mean. So I'm going to chain one and continue working the row. Okay. Remember, we do not increase at the end of any row. So I'm going to place a crochet, a double crochet on top of each and every double crochet from the previous row. So in total at this point, I will have 3 stitches, and then I'm gonna chain 2, turn my work. Okay, after turning my work, right here, I'm going to place a double crochet on top of the very first stitch to mark our first cluster. So once that cluster is in, we will chain 1 and then go on top of the next 2 stitches. We are going to work 2 double crochets, so 1 on top of each, like that. So we have introduced another stitch here to add to the existing one to make a cluster, and then chained 1 and continued with our pattern as we normally would. So I'm going to continue till I get to the mid part where we marked with a stitch marker, and then we shall do our next increase. So this is what you should be having. You can actually see that the flare has started to come up. Okay, so at this point we marked this stitch. Let me just remove this stitch marker for it to be clear. We are going to work an extra stitch on this first, no, I didn't chain 1. So we're going to work an extra stitch here. So I'm going to do a double crochet and another one, and then go on top of the next stitch and work a double crochet, and then I'm going to chain 1 and continue working those 2 double crochets on top of the neck of the 2 double crochets, and we call them clusters here. So now I will mark this part in order to not forget that we are doing our increases at that point, and then chain 1 and continue working. Till I get to the end of the row. Remember, here we have 3 stitches, so when you complete the row you should have 3 stitches at this point. So 3 stitches, we are going to chain 2, introduce another stitch. On the very first double crochet we introduce another stitch, chain 1 and do the next cluster on the next 2 stitches, chain 1 and continue working the row. We are going to work until the part where we marked for the next increase. There. So this is how our work is progressing. We have an extra cluster here, we have an extra one here, we had an extra one here, and we are going to work another one. So as we are progressing, you can see we are increasing by 2 stitches on each and every row, here, here, and then the next row here and here. So the middle part always has that extra stitch, and it depends where you are doing your first increase. So you can do it on either, like we're doing it on either side at the beginning of each and every row. I'm gonna come until I get to this point. We do our next increase on camera, and then I will go off camera and leave you to do your increases until you get to your desired length and flare. I'm at the middle, and as we've always done it, we are going to insert a double crochet and then go to the middle stitch, insert our first double crochet, chain 1 and then insert the next double crochet, and then go to the next double crochet and do a double crochet. So that middle stitch is getting 2 stitches, like it's getting a V. So a double crochet, chain 1 and a double crochet, then you cross over to the next stitch, work your double crochet, and then continue. So you're going to chain and go to the next, like that. So we have an increase, we have an extra cluster, and we've just introduced another extra cluster, and we'll do like that until our flare progresses. So this is what we have at the moment. As you can see, our sleeve has started going the way we want. Let me show you on the other sleeve that I worked earlier. For my first sleeve, this is what I have. I increased until my sleeve looked like this. I'm yet to do the seam. We will do that together on camera. So this is how the middle part will look like after you've done those increases, and then this is how the ends will be looking like. So you can see the increases as you go along. And then I did a total of 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 rows of increases, and that gave me, let me count this off camera, so that gave me a total of 29 clusters. These ones, you can have 30 or 32. It depends on how many rows you increased on. And without wasting so much time, let's just continue working, and you will continue working your increases. Just remember, at the ends we are only increasing at the beginning of each and every row, and right here we are only increasing on each and every row also. So let me take this opportunity to thank you for being here and for subscribing to this channel. It helps me grow a big deal, and I hope to bring more tutorials, and I'm grateful that you're here for this very tutorial. Let us continue working and achieve our dress. So I'm done with the length of this sleeve, and I have a total of 42 rows. And the increases that I've done here, if you can zoom in very well, you'll see I did 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 increases at the middle here. I left these 2 rows without increases, otherwise I'd have a total of 30 clusters. So with the fact that I didn't increase on these 2, that means I have a total of 29 clusters. So just remember, we were increasing at the beginning of each row and also in the middle of the row, in the middle of our work, so that when we fold our sleeve like this, it balances. So the next thing that we are going to do is the seam, the sleeve seam, this one here. So I've done it on this first seam, on this first sleeve, sorry, and I did it using single crochet. So if you look at it well, this is just single crochet. So you will get your work and identify the wrong side. So we are going to fold it with the wrong side outside and the right sides facing, and then we'll just insert our hook on this side that is not attached to the yarn, and then pull the yarn, the chain 1 to this side, and then chain 1. Now we are going to be placing 2 single crochets in each and every row. So this row, you see we have rows on our work here, so we are going to be putting 2 single crochets in each and every row. So I'm going to insert my hook right here, and do the first single crochet in this row and the second single crochet. Go to the next row, which is this part, and do the next single crochet and the next single crochet. Go to the next row and work 2 single crochets. Make sure you're getting both sides and work those 2 single crochets, and then go to the next like that. So we're just joining both sides with single crochets. So I'm going to continue with these single crochets until I get to the end of this sleeve. So at the end of the day, you will be done, and this is how your work should be like. The right side should be looking like this after the seam is completely done. Okay. So at this moment, I have completed both panels, the back and the front panel, and this is at a total of 58 inches long, and this is how it appears when laid flat. So as you can see here, I have marked where our sleeves will be inserted. This is where our sleeves are gonna be, and we are going to work a shoulder seam here and a shoulder seam here, and this is where we will put our sleeve. So ideally, I just mapped this should be able to fit at this point, so that is the amount of space that I left out for this to fit. And then yeah, so what we're going to do next is just join using single crochets all from the where the sleeve will be joined. This is the armpit, so we will work that seam straight down, and also this part straight down, leaving where we will join the sleeve and also do the shoulder seam. So I'm going to start with the shoulder seams, and then we work down the other seams. So once you're done with the shoulder seams, we are going to work on the side seams, and we will start from the bottom here going upwards until we get to the part where we have marked off for the sleeve, and then we will insert the sleeve and work it all together. So when you get to the armhole area, you are going to insert the sleeve, making sure that the right sides are facing each other, and then we will fit the sleeve inside of that armhole and then align it really correctly, making sure that the tip aligns with the tip of the shoulder. This is how we're going to do it. Since we have on this side we are working in rows and in this side we are working in stitches, so you will insert your hook on this side. We will be putting 2 single crochets on each and every row, and then placing a single crochet on top of each and every stitch, including the space, the chain 1 space. So once you have your hook through this row the first time, you are going to go through the first stitch on the sleeve, yarn over, pull through, so like this, yarn over, pull through, and then make a slip, a single crochet, and then still in that same row we will insert our hook and then go to the next stitch. On top of that we will make a single crochet, we will pull through and make a single crochet, and then on the panel side we will go to the next row, insert our hook, and then go in the chain 1 space and make a single crochet like that. And then still on that row we will place our hook in there and then go to the stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop, and then single crochet, and then go to the next. You see we've done 2 stitches here, 2 stitches here. Now we're going to the next where we will employ our 2 stitches, and then on this side we are going to on top of that double crochet and make a single crochet, and then insert your hook in the same, because we need 2 stitches in the same, and then go to the chain 1 space, insert your hook, pull up a loop and work a single crochet. So let's do that again. So we are going to the next row, because we are done with these 2 stitches. You will insert your hook right there, and then now we have these 2 stitches that we will go in. So the first stitch on top there and work a single crochet, and then still in the same row go to the next stitch on the other side, pull up a loop, and this is what we are going to work with until we get to the end. So just make sure you're getting this we are putting 2 stitches in each row, and then on the sleeve side we will be taking a single stitch on each and every, like we're getting a single stitch to complete that seam. So I'm going to do this until I get to this tip of my shoulder. So once you get to this part, you will just remove the stitch marker, and then now we're going to continue with working this area. Now as we've been coming up, now we are going to go downwards until we get to the part where we started from. So we'll just assume that this is a stitch right here and do as we have, and then we turn our work and continue going downwards. So after you've worked these 2, you will skip over the seam and go to the other side and work those 2 stitches right here, and then now we are just going to continue as we normally would until we get to the bottom. So I'm coming towards the end and I'm left with just 1 row here, and then we're going to work. Let me remove the stitch marker because it's important that our work is clear. And then I am going to insert my hook here and work this last stitch. It's right here. Okay. And at this point we're actually done. It's just that we can work an extra stitch here to just ensure everything is safe and secure. And then, yes. So I am going to fasten everything later, but this is what my sleeve looks like. And if I turn to the right side, this is how the joining looks like on the right side. See? The point of intersection is very, very straight. So I'm going to fasten everything and weave in my ends, and then I need you to work the other side. You see, this side is undone. We want to work this side seam and also do the arm seam, and then we will meet up to do this part, the neck area, and we will be done with our dress. We now want to polish the neck area, and we are going to start from anywhere. I'm going to insert my hook just here, and so that you're working from the right side, and then you will insert your hook, and we are going to move with that yarn. So I will chain one and then go into the next and work a single crochet. So we are going to work single crochets on top of each and every stitch all around this area. So we are going to work single crochets. So once we get to this side, we will be placing 2 single crochets in each and every row. Just do 2 single crochets. So I'm going to work these single crochets until I get to this point. So once you get to this part, to this mid part, we are still going to place 2 single crochets in each and every row, but we are going to skip this. We're going to skip this and come to the other side. Just turn your work and go to the other side and do your single crochets. So your work will be looking like this as you go along. So continue working until you get to where you started your row from. So as you get towards the corner, you're going to skip over the seam and just go straight to that part and work those single crochets. Like that until you get to where you started from. So once you get to where you started from, you will insert your hook on top of that single crochet and just slip stitch, chain one, and now we can cut this yarn. and weave in our ends, because at this moment the dress is done. The next thing that we're going to do is insert a drawstring here and here, and then the general drawstring at the waist area. 1 2 3 4 5 6 7. So this is going to be the drawstring for the waist, and I'm using 1 2 3 strands to make this, for it to be a bit stronger. So I'm going to chain a chain long enough to fit around the waist twice, and also tie and leave some hanging ties. You have to tie both ends for it not to unravel. This part is important. And then cut your yarn like that on both sides. So once you're done, you're going to insert the cord that we just made on both sides of the dress at the waist area, and then you will tie, and this will help put the dress in shape. As you can see here, I have tied it at the back, as you will see in this video. I want to thank you for being here, for subscribing to my YouTube channel, and I hope that you have found this video helpful. And if you do recreate this, please tag me on Instagram so that I can share in your growth and in your crochet journey. Thank you so much. My name is Marion, and until next time, bye.